Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show.
Our company is called Mission Matters. We're a multimedia platform focused on the needs of entrepreneurs, executives, business owners. Our mission and our vision is to amplify their stories so that we can inspire future generations. And we do that through podcasts, through books, through different mediums. And we're constantly creating new content. And so we have some exciting books coming out in the next, I want to say 1-2 months, another business leadership book. And we were so inspired by our Women in Business book that we released late last year that we're going to be working on another one here soon. Just want to thank everyone for coming. We host these weekly panels every single week, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the goal is to curate different discussions just because we have a really eclectic group of authors. And we really want to bring them to the forefront. You guys all specialize in different industries, different verticals. And so we cover different topics. This week's panel discussion is really just going to be focused on marketing, branding your company. A lot of you guys have been specializing in that. And when I say company, I think it's in some instances, it's even branding yourself as more so an influencer, especially on apps like Clubhouse, like we're using right now, or Instagram or other platforms just like that. And so with that, want to kick it off. And, we want to start off with some intros. So Adam, I guess, do you want to take the lead and take the floor? And let's introduce all of our panelists and bring on a few others and, get the panel going.
All right. Thank you, Chirag. And excited to have everyone here. I'm like, oh man, Kamar's here. Oh, from Texas. I've been watching all that's going on over there. We'll get some updates from you. And Parag, I haven't talked to you in ages. It feels like we've probably been a year or more, maybe. I don't know. So this will be good to catch up. And I'm excited about today's topic. So marketing and branding, which many of the people that are on this call, number one, do really well for themselves, their companies, and everybody has their different specialties. So this is going to be fun. We just start off. Let's just start on the top left. Let's just start with Parag. Well, we'll do 30-second intros, give or take, a couple seconds either way, and just, say who you are, what you do, and go from there.
Sure. Thanks, Adam. It's good to see you. It's been too long. Hi, everybody. My name is Parag. I am a lawyer. I represent injured people and injured businesses. So I do personal injury law and business litigation. I help businesses with business disputes. So again, Parag, I help injured people and injured businesses. Thanks.
All right, Renee, please. Good to see you.
Hey, how are you? My name is Renee Cantera. I'm in Miami, so sorry it's a little warmer than most of the country. Also a little later, so excuse me if I'm not as awake as some of you on the West Coast. I do programmatic marketing for other agencies, so a lot of digital agencies or branding agencies reach out to me to implement their media buying so that we can target the right audience to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. And JC, please. Good to see you. Been a while too. That talked is. Awesome.
Yeah. Want to jump on a 15-minute catch-up. So I'm JC. I own Infinity Marketing Group. We specialize in B2B tech companies mostly. I've got a spin-off agency recently called Pod Catalyst that helps get people on podcasts and helps hosts get targeted guests on their podcasts. Been doing digital marketing for about 20 years. It's barely existed longer than that, apparently. And own my agency for 11. So if anybody has any questions about marketing and branding, and I feel like I'm on the right call for this one. And if you go and hit my profile, you can follow me, and we can talk later and tonight.
Man, what a great name. Talk about marketing and branding. Pod Catalyst. That's awesome. I love it. I can't wait to hear more about this. That's so good.
And I wish I could take credit for that one. I really do. It was my web designer who was literally just using it as a filler because I told her the idea of what we were going to do. And she just threw that in there. And when she presented it, everyone was like, wait, is that taken? Is that taken? Can we get that?
That's awesome.
And we did. Totally was not my idea. So I've got good staff.
Fantastic. All right, please. So good to see you again.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on here again. I'm Martin. Nice to see some of the people from last week. I'm looking forward to actually hearing what some people are going to be bringing to the table here. I run Board's Eye. I'm one of the co-founders. We work with C-suite executives, and we help connect them with companies, anything from startup to public, in the process of building out their board of executives, and also board of advisors. So we're in B2B and B2C, work on both ends.
Awesome, thank you. And Minji, so good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hi, Adam. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Minji Chang, and I'm an actor, podcast host, and filmmaker, and a fledgling entrepreneur. So I'm learning a lot. I've been working in the entertainment universe I'm saying universe like it's a comic book universe, but anyway, I've been working in the entertainment industry and universe for the last 12 years, specifically in advancing Asian American diverse representation in media.
Awesome, thank you. And Nancy, so good to see you.
You too. Super excited to be in this room. Thanks for the invitation. So I am Nancy, and I teach people, small businesses, how to run an entire marketing campaign off their cell phone. So if they don't know how to shoot video, producing, editing, whatever it is, I teach them how to save a lot of money. And then I teach them also what I've done with my company, which is a popsicle company that I sell to corporate America, fruit popsicles to Facebook, Google, and all of them. So I'm using that business as an example to train and to coach. So if you guys need my help, let me know.
Fantastic. And Dr. Troy, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Good evening. So this is Dr. Troy. I'm an author and also a talent retention strategist, consultant, and executive coach. I work with leaders who want to advance their careers while building cultures of cohesion that deal with giving people a sense of belonging, value, and mutual commitment. And I'm really excited. March 8th, we launch a new product called Cohesion Culture Camp, which is a 5-week do-it-yourself module leadership development program.
Fantastic. Brian, welcome. Well, one thing that me and Brian are not going to be giving advice on today, that's using the Clubhouse app, because we were in the wrong room, right, Brian? We're sitting here talking like, where's everybody at?
I know, we were in an alternate universe over there, which was strangely named the same. So yes, right. So again, Adam, thank you for always standing out. Thank you, everybody here. I was so proud to be in the book. My name is Brian Patrick. I'm CEO and founder of Greenlight Startup Inc. Our focus as a company, I started from the fintech and banking industry. I noticed that there was not a lot of diversity in terms of from a racial standpoint, from a gender standpoint, and I always had a commitment that one day I was going to try to make a change and try to help Black and female-owned businesses to empower themselves, to do risk assessment, and to start their own companies, but also to be empowered to do so using data-driven analysis and capability, and having a learning plan towards increasing their capability, so that ultimately you can find the right kind of funding and follow-on funding to eventually exit and be financially independent from the Shark Tanks of the world and do your own thing without having to always give away your equity. That's a big thing that we're trying to do. So, and I was proud to be part of the Mission Matters book too. And one last thing I'll mention is that just this month we launched our first risk assessment, what we call Startup Maturity Evaluation Program, which we just launched in honor of Black History Month. We've been trying to focus on that, but we are focused on all businesses. But we do have a specific focus on the businesses that have certain historical challenges. And of course, we're also trying to deal with ways of addressing the economic disruption to COVID-19.
Dallas, I believe. Oh man, how are you holding up out there? So good to have you join us.
Thank you. I finally got my electricity back, so I'm good for 4.5 days of -8 temperature. But I could overcome it. As CEO and a founder of a white label press release service, unlike the big wires, I built the whole system myself, and I've connected with over 1,000 outlets, so we can feed directly into them and offer white label PR services to SEO and PR agencies.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kamara. And so I guess just to get today's conversation kicked off, and in terms of format and what we do, so this is not like the typical, for everybody that's been on the show, on the podcast, where, I'm asking a bunch of questions and a question and response, like that type of format. This is really meant to be more fireside chat style, driven definitely by your responses and interaction with everyone. So just throwing that out there in terms of format. So maybe I'll throw this one out there on the table for someone to jump on. And that's really, so, going into, we obviously all know how 2020, ended, or how it happened, and the COVID, all the other things that are going on, lots of changes, lots of people now online doing, Zoom calls and other things to reach their potential audience. And that's not going to really change probably anytime in the near future. So what kind of things have you seen or are you doing that are just new and innovative in general in marketing and branding in this new given environment that we're in overall?
One thing I'm saying, just from the agency side, well, for one, Clubhouse. I mean, honestly, guys, if you're not mildly addicted to this already, then there's something wrong with you. If you're trying to get your brand out there. So we'll start with the thing that we're all in right now. I highly recommend going and finding Clubhouse's new releases. They talk about like what's coming on the next versions. For example, in your profile right now, you can hyperlink into your Instagram and Twitter, and they're working a deal in the works right now with LinkedIn. So that's going to really help a lot of people, because right now people are trying to get creative and they're going looking people up on LinkedIn and connecting with them, for their B2B stuff. It'll get a lot simpler in that. But I'd say, honestly, try to keep a schedule, like go on your calendar and maybe carve out like an hour a day that you're going to jump on. When you get into a room, especially even if it's a bigger room, just do what I call the ninja hand raise. You jump in the room and immediately just hit the little button to raise your hand. You might not be called on for, half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe the full hour. But when you do, when you have something really good and intriguing to say, the bigger the room, the more people that'll follow you. And one thing that I'll say too is everyone in here, of course, make sure you're following everyone else. When we follow each other and we can all engage and whatnot, those algorithms kick in. It shows us more and get more notifications to our followers, the more active we are. Also, if you are interested in creating your own group, a club, I should say, within Clubhouse, you first have to make sure that you've hosted at least one room per week over 3 weeks. And that's just the minimum. They want to see you, hosting more rooms or being a moderator in more rooms. They want to see that you're active and things like that. And as long as you're doing that, then you can be approved for a club. And when you own a club, so for example, Adam and Chirag could make a club about Mission Matters, for example, right? And the more people that join the club, then when they start a room, it'll automatically notify all the people in the club. So there's clubs in here that already have 5, 6, 7, 10, 20,000 followers. So if someone is a member and has permissions within that club to start a room based on that club, it sends out that notification to everyone in their push notifications, which is huge, because all of a sudden you could just flood a room. And then also everyone, if you're in a room and you want it to be bigger, there's a little plus sign in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you hit that, it'll kind of show up most of the people that you kind of connect with more often than not, and you start touching their profile pictures, and it's going to start pinging them, inviting them into this room with us, so we get more people in this room. Because our knowledge and things that we're talking about, we're doing this to help others, because the more you give, the more you just end up getting eventually anyway, and we can showcase our expertise. So I got a lot of these that talk about marketing, but honestly, I think the fact that we're in this room and we're doing this, I think the little tips and tricks on how to use this more to your advantage are big. Also, I'd say if you're on this, have a tab open in LinkedIn. And if you hear anyone talking that you just really like what they're saying, go find them on LinkedIn and connect with them. And in the custom invite message, say, hey, I heard you on Clubhouse today, just thought I'd connect. Your odds of getting an acceptance on that are about 100%. If because you're not random. Now they know, oh yeah, you must have listened to me Clubhouse. Great. So there's just a lot of things to do with that. I'd say my first tip is really utilizing this platform that we're on right now, because this is going to be the next real big thing.
Well, so what else is going on interesting? And thank you for that, by the way, JC. Like that's those are big tips right there. And I'm taking notes, and Chirag is definitely the catalyst for Clubhouse getting us out there. I think you applied for a room, right, Chirag?
I have. I'm on the wait list, so I guess any tricks to expedite that, JC? I think this is our 4th or 5th one we've hosted in a week. Actually, 6th one now going into it. So we've actually lined up, funny enough, the next 4 or 5 weeks. So.
Yeah, mine is pending also. So, I'll let you know if I get in. I mean, you guys might get in before me because you're probably doing a lot more rooms than I am as far as creating them. But, they got flooded with that. So
right.
They have growing pains right now. So just they'll get around to our applications eventually. There's no hacks to get through there.
I guess that's a hack in and of itself. So you got to figure that out then.
Since we're talking about Clubhouse, I will throw another platform that's out there. It is a startup, but it's called Needle. It's NEDL.com. Just worth for you guys to check it out. Works similar, a little bit different. It can be actually, people can actually listen in on the web. They don't have to have the app. So there's a few advantages, but it's pretty interesting. I just checked it out today for the first time.
Interesting.
Okay, so I have a question I wanted to throw out. So do any of you use an affiliate program where you have other individuals that you network with who will promote your products and services for a commission? And how did you go about doing it?
I can help you with that. So the digital PR, there are a lot of people that are promoting various affiliate products, from products to supplements to software. And there are many platforms out there like ClickBank, and there are some medical related programs out there that you can join by Google search. And once you join it, the next thing is, how do you sell a product? So once is, you can use a lot of social media and press releases to promote them. And that's become, about 80% of my business. A lot of people are promoting from all over the world. They find a product and then they go and promote it. And these guys are making in excess of $1,000 a day in that kind of business by spending very little money. So there's something to learn from that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also used to use a software called Link Connector. And what they do is they plug you in with affiliate marketers, I think even influencers, and you could coordinate like a whole rev share. So they have the whole database with the types of influencers you're looking for, and then you just upload whatever that product is. And then just through that platform where you could, connect with folks who can help you on that side of things too.
Is there anything specific that you do because it's all about marketing and branding. So if you find people who will promote your product and service, that's great. But maybe what would you do to qualify those individuals that will protect your brand?
Companies that you join usually help you with that. And you have to set the parameters of what they should not do promoting you. So once you use some kind of a platform, then they take care of that. So you don't have to worry about it. That's the way I've learned it. We have a lot of affiliates that market us, and we tell them what to do and what not to do. And if they violate that, then the system or the framework kicks them out.
So I can speak on that. I joined Stack Influence, and basically they send me products. And if I decide that I want to promote that product, then they tell me the rules. They said, okay, you have to post it on Instagram. You have to use these hashtags, and we'll give you the product for free, or we'll pay you $100 or $200 or $500. So it's up to whatever the person selling the product wants and how they want to handle to pay. So I can either just promote and I get a free product, which is kind of cool, or so it'd be up to you to decide the name. So that one's called Stack Influence, and they look for influencers, and then what they end up doing is finding out how many followers you have, what kind of influencer you are. So they target the people they think are going to buy the product from the followers. So they judge everything by the followers, what type of followers they have.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. So if it's up to me to lead this, you know where I'm going to go. I want to talk about podcasting. So Minji, JC, I believe there's some other podcasters on here. Let's talk about what you're doing to, get your podcast out there, to grow your audience. Let's get into the podcast scope of things.
So ladies first. Minji.
Thank you, JC. That was very gracious. I think it's a funny thing to be asked how I'm growing it, because quite frankly, I started my podcast 3.5 years ago because I had already been hosting about 150 episodes of my nonprofit's podcast, and that was called Collabcast, and that was centered around highlighting Asian American artists and creatives and sharing their stories. And because my co-host, who is also a good friend and my producer, he was sick of me nagging him about his dating life and like how he should eat better and sleep better and all this stuff. He's like, you should just host a podcast. So the origins of my podcast was not really, I guess, weirdly not to grow an audience. My origin story, or my why I started, was just because I had things to share, and my friends, my immediate circle of friends, were interested in hearing about it. So I was just like, hey, this is the audience that I'm serving. And then when I was doing preliminary research, I was finding that out of, the podcast groups on Facebook, that I was just doing a quick tally. And I think I tallied about 400 plus people who responded to, hey, share your podcast link. And it was, I think, exactly a 2-to-1 ratio of male to female hosts. So for every female host, there were 2 male hosts. And out of the female hosts, there are very few, if any, women of color. And out of those women of color, the age demographic, this is back in 2017, the age demographic, like I was definitely one of the younger ones at that time. So I felt like, oh, this is like an area where there's a vacancy. There's kind of this absence of this voice, woman of color, millennial, younger or middle millennial. And a lot of the content that they were sharing was a lot of professional focus, like real estate and how to do marketing and things like that. And I was like, I want to talk about, anxiety, and I want to talk about dating, and I want to talk about hookup culture, and I want to talk about my body issues, because that's stuff I want to listen to other people share their stories about. So that's kind of like my origin story of like how I crafted my podcast. It was pretty organic, I guess, and not super ambitious in its reach, but there was a gut instinct that if it was something that I would ideally want to listen to, that hopefully there was an audience out there that would also want to as well. And in terms of growth, I think I was very fortunate to have, in my 12 years of working in the Asian American creative community, I am friends, like actual friends with a lot of influencers with a lot of following, and I myself have kind of established myself in my universe to be a leader of sorts. And so there are people that were willing to give me a shot. They'd heard me speak at conferences, they'd heard me speak and host shows. So I kind of had a little built-in audience, and so I just went with that. I started small. I wasn't expecting the universe, and I wanted for myself, after all the podcasts I had listened to, for the content to be clean. Basically, I think that's something that's very, very, at least increasingly, in the millennial gen, definitely in the Gen Z generation that I work a lot with, people, they don't want to be marketed to, quite frankly. Like, that's the easiest way I can put it. They want to be seen, and they want to be understood, and they want to learn, but they don't want to be sold things. And I'm around influencers. Like, my universe is all people who are making content to get sponsored ads. But the authenticity part is really crucial, and being of value by being authentic, I think, is it's the thing that's going to kind of land the most with an audience, is what I found. I've seen that even in the content that I've put a lot of thought behind and tried to convey something and put a lot of effort into, versus the ones that kind of came naturally, and I was being vulnerable and sharing my own actual story. I ended up crying on a couple of podcasts. Those, like, the numbers on that were very clear in terms of what the response was. So I don't know what happened out there. I don't know if people were just sharing that more, but I've just through and through, I've seen from content that I'm interested in listening to, influencers, quote unquote, that I'm willing to share and give a like and comment and engage with their content on. Authenticity, substance, I think is paramount. I think if you're just there to like get somebody to follow you, I'm around influencers all the time, and I get so sick of hearing people say, hey, follow me. Like, why should I follow you? For what? Like, I follow a lot of people. I don't like asking that. I'm like, hey, if this is valuable to you, please feel free to follow me. Like, you don't have to. I'm not begging you to follow me. And I think that attitude, and that for me has brought me to where I am. I did experience growth through consistency, and that was just putting, week after week content, and not, I did lose steam, but I just basically planned ahead for losing that steam. So those are kind of like key preliminary thoughts. It's going to take up so much space, but hopefully that's helpful. JC, you got it. I would love to hear your thoughts on your podcast.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, thanks. And by the way, I agree with like almost everything you said there. I think the one thing that I might disagree with slightly is I do agree that people do not want to be sold. People love buying things. Let's be clear. People love buying things, but no one really wants to be sold. But I do believe that they want to be marketed to. They just don't want to be carelessly marketed to or generically marketed to. And I think that goes to your point about someone like, hey, follow me. And you're like, why? Like, what have you done to earn my attention in that respect? Personally, I love seeing ads on Instagram and online that are relevant to me. I mean, every other day is Christmas here because I get another Amazon package that shows up. And I don't remember what the hell I bought, but I know I'm going to be happy when I open it. And I'm going to thank 2-day-old me for buying it. And there's going to be some ad that I bought it because of, right? So I think being marketed to properly, and as long as it's targeted and something that you already showed interest in, I think that is something that people, crave if they don't necessarily talk about it. But more on the podcast thing, what I've been doing personally, my podcast launched, I want to say like 3, and my podcast drops weekly. It's called The Future of Biz Tech. I interview CEOs and CMOs of B2B software companies. It's a very niche podcast, but it really appeals to the demographic that my agency targets. So I think, when it comes to a podcast, you have to ask yourself, first, why are you doing it? So some people start podcasts because they have a story to tell, right? There's just something that is passionate to them, and they just want to share that with other people. They don't have anything else in mind, and that's great, because honestly, those podcasts do really, really well as far as viral downloads and listenership, right? And then later on, you can figure out how to monetize off it if you want, right? And then usually you'll end up getting approached anyway by companies if they see that you've got a really big following. And the other type of podcasters are the people who are using it for a sales funnel in a way, so top of the funnel. I do that with mine, admittedly. I love my podcast. If I sold my company tomorrow, I would still keep my podcast. So I kind of double dip. I just happen to actually also love that stuff because I'm a geek from the Bay Area. I was hacking AOL when I was 12 kind of thing. I was that kid in the basement, going nuts. And so I love talking to people who run software companies because it fascinates me. But because they're my demographic, I also have a follow-up system to see if there's a way that we can work with their company with my services, right? So I monetize off my podcast by having it positioned at the top of the funnel. As far as getting people on it, I'm a big LinkedIn fan. I find that it is nearly impossible for me to reach out to connect to someone who would be good for my podcast and ask them if they want to be on my podcast and them say no. I mean, I get almost no no's at all, because the cool thing about reaching out to someone who's targeted anyway for your podcast is that it kind of validates all the hard work that they put in to their trade craft, the years of education, grinding, nose to the grindstone kind of thing, and working their way up. And now they've reached this point in their career where they are experts and knowledgeable. And someone says, hey, could you come and tell everyone your story and give advice on this that you've obviously worked your butt off for? And that feels really good. I mean, I don't know anybody who would want to say no to that, to be honest, unless you're just not, a public kind of person. But it really does create that validation. So it's really easy to get people to accept. The trick is, how do you get in front of the right people? And LinkedIn is a great spot. So if you have a Sales Navigator subscription, it's like $80 a month through LinkedIn. It's worth every penny, but allows you to really laser target on the advanced search criteria. So for us, for example, I only target CEOs and CMOs of B2B software companies in the US that have over 200 employees, so I can really, really get down to the very nitty gritty of who I'm looking for. And when I send out these requests and messages about my podcast, I mean, I'm booked out right now for about 3 months out. So I mean, I could die tomorrow and nobody would know it for like 90 days. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still reposting stuff apparently after posthumous podcast basically. So it's really easy to get booked out if you're looking to get a lot of guests, as long as you know who you're targeting, and honestly just be upfront to say, hey, seems like you'd be an expert on this and great value for my audience. Would you like to be on? And they don't really care how old your podcast is. They don't care how many downloads it has. They're just typically happy to help. I almost never get the question of like, how many episodes do you have? How many people listen to it? The only time you're going to get questions like that is if it's an ad firm that is looking to place their ads within your podcast. That's the only time that matters. If you're just trying to get guests, nobody asks that. So I'd use LinkedIn personally, and Clubhouse is great too. You get on a room like this with me, I'm telling you guys about my podcast. Most of you might not be interested in the topic, but maybe 2 of you are, and then now you listen to it. So that's my advice for that.
JC, I just want to say I agree 100%. I think every podcast that I've been interviewed on came through LinkedIn. I also believe Adam found me through LinkedIn. I mean, for me, B2B and even B2C, we utilize LinkedIn for everything. And me doing podcasts and opening up to actually being interviewed has also done a great job for our company and for branding. So, I mean, it works both ways.
Yeah, it is really good for it. And also, another thing too is, even if you have your own podcast, to definitely do that both directions, right? Try to get on podcasts also. The amount of marketing material you get from just one published podcast is pretty incredible. Plus you get the audience of whoever their audience is, right? Because they're going to post to their social media, they're going to put it to to their website and their blog, and they're going to transcribe it, and you're going to be tagged in it. Your URL is going to be in there. There's huge SEO benefits. There's great social media benefits, great authority benefits, especially if you're someone who's trying to work your way up the chain and sell products or services that are more enterprise level, for example, and you're trying to go for the bigger clients. Typically, the ones who get those deals are people who are recognizable in some format. And if you've been on podcasts, or like in my case too, doing the co-author book with Adam, like everybody else here, that all that stuff helps, right? So, and that's why I started Pod Catalyst, because I was like, well, we got really good at doing it for ourselves and a couple other people. Like, let's just turn this into a service, like, so we do it for both sides.
Awesome. Thanks, JC. That was good.
I don't have a podcast, but I know what's been working for me is really running my business, my popsicle business with video, and whatever I do to that business is why people reach out. They said, oh, who does your promotion? Who does your marketing for your company? I go, I do. Like, that's when I get my clients that I can teach them, or I can sell them a package to make it happen for them. So it's like I hustle one business to get more leads, and not even have to reach out and look for them because they look for me. So I think that that's another strategy. Also, on every post that I do, I tag my name, #Nancy, and I also tag all the companies I own, and I tag everything that I want, for why I want people to reach out. And I notice those tags end up working because they end up funneling back to me, and then figuring out who I am, and then contacting me. So I wait for people to come to me because that's easier. But I do have to do a lot of hashtagging and a lot of promotion and marketing so that it works. And then on top of that, if you do boosting and things like that, that also works. But I don't have a podcast yet.
Yeah, it's interesting, Nancy. I was going to just jump in here because I don't have a podcast either, but I was going to mention that LinkedIn's been excellent for me. I wasn't even in any sales capacity until about 4 years ago. I was just marketing, and it turned out that my current company found me on LinkedIn just because of all the connections I had and, the trust that I built among people. When you get the endorsements and you show like over 200 people say you're an expert in marketing or strategy. And, it doesn't seem like that really weighs heavy, but I guess people do read that because sometimes it'll help get me in the door with connections. So just emphasizing that LinkedIn's been a great platform, at least for the traditional kind of face-to-face business when you have to pitch clients to win them over. But of course, nowadays with the social distancing, at least the established relationship to kind of make a Zoom call.
I think I really love all the info. I'm absorbing a lot even from my podcast and its future. I think a tip that a friend shared with me and actually became relevant to me recently is if you are kind of pitching yourself to be on somebody else's podcast. I think JC, you hit the nail on the head in terms of like being targeted and being intentional about who you reach out to and how to kind of be of value and how to be collaborative about it. Because I do think recently it's a great sign. I take it as a great compliment, but more and more people have been reaching out to me to be on my podcast. But some of the messages, whether, I'm sure if you're getting it on LinkedIn or otherwise getting messaged, they clearly haven't listened to my podcast. There's no true connection. They just want to get XYZ promoted, their book, their services. And, I work really hard to create and produce and put out a consistent quality podcast as good as it can be. So I think for anybody who has a business and wants to be placed, I think there are tons of opportunities out there. There are people that are always looking for content and looking for other people to highlight. But I think it's kind of like you're sending out a cover letter to a company and you didn't even see what they sell, right? Like you don't even know what they do and you're trying to ask to be hired there. So I think having that care and intentionality present in your ask or your pitch is really, it seems small and you think that that's like a very thing, but there are people that can overlook that. So even maybe listening to one of their episodes and saying, hey, I really appreciated your last episode about mental health in the workplace and working from home in the pandemic. Like be specific and thoughtful. I think you can go a long way in terms of getting that yes, because maybe that podcast is they are booked out for the next 3 months and they don't have as big of a need to feature you as you might feel like you want to be featured on them. So I think it's just approaching it with a collaborative mindset.
Hey, Minji, I really appreciated you saying that and talking about being authentic in the individuals that come in and which talk about, you're very clear about what you're looking for with your guests. And I thought something else that you said was it'd be like going through some sort of an ad process and going, hey, I just want to buy this, and you don't really know what it is or what it's about. And there is so much about creating relationships, and that is important to me. And so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, actually, I could kind of dovetail a little bit into what Minji and what both of you kind of mentioned. This is something that may be a little, not so much controversial, but because of the fact that we're still dealing with the pandemic, and it's going to take X number of months going into next year before we really start to feel comfortable. At Greenlight, one of the things we were making a lot of inroads to different clients, especially because we're working with startup founders and we're working with people who are angel investors. So for them, this last year was very difficult in terms of doing it virtually, because while they have to, this is not them at their best. Yeah, it's difficult to really get a sense of a person, especially when you're talking about potentially bringing them in, for some kind of initial series funding. To have to only do it by viewing them on a screen, talking on the phone, is really difficult for a VC company to really embrace this. Imagine if you were an investor and all you had to go by was a Zoom call, it probably would increase your hesitation a bit, because you didn't get a chance to really meet the person. But that's the way it is now. One of the things that my partner, Jalissa, and I have been talking about is, I have a feeling my podcasts are great, and I agree LinkedIn is great for that. That's why I think that's how Adam and I got connected as well, and other people who have gotten webcasts through it. I think it's great to use that. But again, typically it's a portal to go somewhere to do something. I'm going to make a prediction. I have a feeling that the minute that our nation gets to a certain degree of vaccination, I'm not going to guess on the exact month because too many variables there, but I'm making a prediction that when we've reached, whatever that threshold and the inflection point where the majority of people have gotten both the initial and booster shot, and offices are starting to reopen, whatever that is, I have a feeling there is going to be a tremendous surge of people wanting to get away from the computer screens and wanting to find a safe space to physically go to, whether it be a trade organization like Project Management Institute I belong to, or whether it be, any other kind of, in-person tech, hackathons and things. Because right now everything is so virtual. I have a feeling that while using the virtual method that's the method we really have to follow right now. But I'm going to predict that the inflection point hits. I think there's going to be a drop off of Zoom usage. I predict there's going to be a drop off of people even engaging on a lot of different platforms like LinkedIn. It's not going to stop, obviously. It's never going to, that's never going to stop. But I think there's going to, when that initially happens, I think that there's such pent up desire to actually, I think, Adam, we were talking about this, the desire to actually shake a person's hand and know that it's not endangering you or the other person. Just to be able to do that, I think there's a pent up desire for people to want to go back to the old way of doing sales as much as we can do safely. It's just a prediction, so I don't know. I don't know if it'll work out that way, but I have a feeling that we should, I want to keep the human part of it, the human touch part of it, when it's safe to do so, but also, still leveraging a lot of the great ideas that all you put up.
Hey, I'm excited for that to happen, Brian, and I think then we'll have a clubhouse on guerrilla marketing and experiential marketing. How we can throw in-person events right now, because
what happened to the cocktail hours? I think I speak for everybody. I miss that. Yeah, we lost that because there's great marketing and great networking that you can get when people together, again, when they're safe and everybody has that good feeling. We haven't had that for past year.
Yeah, Brian, I agree. And it's funny because that came up today at the conference that I was on. It's a conference that they hold quarterly, 4 times a year. And normally it would be in Vegas, and they did it all virtual last year and started off this year virtual. But at the end of it, we did, wine tasting, quote unquote, virtual wine tasting. And we were all talking about how a safe prediction, they think it's going to finally open up, and they can't wait to come out to Vegas, which is funny enough because I live in Vegas. So I'm excited for it. And I would have to agree. I think it's going to open up, and certain things like Zoom will definitely have a drop off. But yeah, I think it's going to be good overall. I know a lot of people are on the edge.
I just wanted to point something out, because obviously from the human perspective, you do miss, having those lunches, although sometimes I will have a one-person outdoor lunch. But I have to say my productivity really increased in 2020, which I don't know if that happened for other people, but I guess a lot of my time was spent driving around or networking in person, and I actually got more sales last year. Did anyone else have that effect? I was just wondering if I was just had more productivity for some reason because I was bored otherwise.
Yeah, for me, it was, which is crazy to say, but I was so happy that it all kind of shut down, not because of what was happening, but because I run around, go to every single meeting I can go to for networking purposes, and the fact that I couldn't go anywhere and be anywhere forced me to reinvent, forced me to adjust, forced me to count every penny, forced me to do a lot of things. So for me, it was a big blessing, and I did double on a few other projects that I had. So it just depends, I guess, taking advantage of the opportunity, even though things are not good, but all the downtime definitely helped.
I think in general, you guys are absolutely right, Renee. I mean, and this is from corporate level down to entrepreneurs. I think productivity's up. I have a friend that traveled all over the world, and now he does everything, obviously, through Zoom meetings, and he's definitely more productive, spends more time with his family. He's gotten used to it now. He missed it in the beginning. Opening up conferences, obviously, it's not that day-to-day hustling, driving around, but getting away for a couple of days at a conference, I think definitely would be nice for me, just from my perspective.
So I would just say that it was a good year for me as well this past year. The previous year, I traveled to 10 different countries. And so in 2019 and so in 2020, I traveled to 20 different rooms, some of which I repeated multiple times in my home so that I could change my location so I wouldn't get bored of where it was. But it was a great year in regard to that. And the thing, and kind of I think like Nancy said, I don't want it to happen. But what did occur was the great equalizer, that all organizations were more or less forced, and the majority of organizations were forced to do work electronically and to supplement from that face-to-face interaction. As humans, we're never going to get away from our need and our desire to be with other people. We're designed that way.
But what I would say is that it's a kind of demand for individuals to want to get together with people. Why? Because as humans, we're designed that way. I mean, we are inherently, it's all part of our DNA to do it. As soon as we have this opportunity to connect, then you're going to see a pendulum shift and we're going to connect. But once you are no longer told that you can't connect, then we'll start to see a leveling out and there'll be some additional freedom. Prior to the pandemic, 6% of the US population was actually remote workers. And during the pandemic, more than 62% of individuals ended up working from home. All of us were probably very characteristic of that. The statistics say that somewhere upwards of 25 to 40% of workers will continue to be remote after what I call the pandemic stabilizes. I hate using the new normal. I just say stabilize. And when that happens, then, we're obviously what we learned here in the way we had to pivot our business to do something electronically where we used to do it face to face. We now are going to be even more skilled to have the opportunity for the interactions. And the best thing that happened to me was not that travel time to go from one face-to-face meeting to another and have the opportunity to really do more back-to-back work. And it was extremely effective for me.
Yeah, I feel like as I'm listening to this, everybody talk about their productivity, I'm like, are me and Chirag more productive? I think we were, number one. But number two, I feel like you got some more podcast episodes out of me, Chirag, because I was I didn't have anything else to do.
The true story.
So one thing that Nancy brought up, okay, so we talked about podcasting, we talked about some other ways to market. Nancy brought up video. And so Chirag's always on me and always kind of, and obviously he's the brains behind our marketing for sure over here, and he's always pushing towards video. We recently made a switch to video. We still, of course, do our podcast, but we made a switch to video, and we've just seen really our numbers across the board kind of explode in a lot of different things for even just organic reach. What's everybody's experience with video? I mean, and Nancy, you gave a little bit. If you want to go further down that line, or anybody else that's incorporating a lot of video in their overall marketing and branding, I'd like to hear your experiences also.
I like to bring this up real quick about video because I just got a really big client, real estate related, and they were trying something new and they allowed me to just do whatever I wanted. So I said, okay, great. Let's strategize. And I gave them some ideas and they allowed me to do bio videos on every rep. And I couldn't believe the numbers when we put it on YouTube, we put it on Facebook, and they're all blown away. They're like, I've never had 2 likes on any of my videos, and now I have 7,000 in less than a week. I'm like, I know, isn't this great? And I'm taking them as an example of like just a simple bio video of like who they are, instead of basically storytelling about them being human instead of the business. Like, we didn't put any logos, we didn't sell anything. We were just like, hey, you know, my name is Peter and I love to serve and I love to do this, and this is, I love my job, and just kind of basically behind the scenes of who they are. So it's selling more and bringing in more leads with video than if they were to say, hi, come, you know, call us, we're here to help you. That whole style of video doesn't work as much as right now. What I'm noticing is just storytelling of who you are, people telling basically. So I think that everyone should be doing video because it is the way, it's the next big wave, and it is right now, but it's going to get more and more as we go on. That's my 2 cents.
And Parag, not to call you out if you're there, but I've watched some of your videos and they're great. I love whenever I see a Parag video come across my timeline on something or wherever feed I'm on, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good. I want to hear about your mastermind behind this because I'm always entertained by your work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I was gonna chime in and just talk about video a little bit. So video is not something I used until about a year ago, when a friend of mine runs a really successful personal injury firm, really made it a point to market his whole business through social media, and particularly Instagram, because he was going up against much larger budgets, and he found that, you know, you can compete with a much larger budget by just creating better videos and better content. And so I actually got the idea from him. And so what we started doing for my firm was I started shooting videos on my phone. So super low budget. I got a small like white light that you can get from Amazon, like a little ring light. And so I was using that to shoot these videos, and I would just have them edited by editors on Upwork, and then started uploading those, and they got a lot of interaction. So people tend to like them. I think that video is going to be here to stay for the long term. And to echo what you said, Nancy, I agree that, you know, those kind of raw type videos, the unedited, the non-commercial type videos, I think tend to do better. Like, I've shot videos, you know, wearing full-on suits, and then I've shot videos in t-shirts. And somehow, for whatever reason, most of the time, the t-shirt type videos where it's kind of just a very casual type conversation, those tend to perform better because I think that people tend to think that they are more authentic. They're less kind of staged, and they're more just in your face. Or like walk and talk type videos where you're just walking and talking about a subject, or you're on scene somewhere, just shooting a quick video in front of a building or in front of a site. People tend to like those because it's just new and interesting. And I think that most people, especially now because of social media, have been kind of trained whenever they have a break to just look for something that's visually appealing. And typically that's going to be a video. You know, it's more interactive than a photograph or text. And so I think generally people will go to Instagram and start scrolling, or go to TikTok and start scrolling. And so it's a great avenue for growth in the future. I'm curious to hear what you guys think as well.
I think live videos, like this is live here, but the power of really getting comfortable in your own skin and just going for it, obviously, you know, plan it out, strategize it, and execute lives are even more powerful than a normal video because people want to see how you're going to mess up. Right? If it's live, you can always mess up. So that gets people's attention to grab, go, ooh, she's live. Let me see if she, which has happened to me before. I was talking about not buying any ring lights or doing really raw things, and I grabbed my lamp and I said, look, I'm using the lamp, and the lamp fell on my face. And it was really embarrassing. And I got like one of those hits from after I uploaded that video because it was live, because it was like, things can happen when you're live. So I think the power of live, we need to start talking about that.
Yeah, I love that. You know, the thing about live that's always scared me, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it too, is that feeling that I'm going to get on live and then it's going to be live. There's going to be 0 viewers for the next 20, 30 minutes. And there I am just by myself, talking to myself.
and then broadcasting that conversation to myself, to the world. And so I always felt a little bit weird about it. But, how did you get over that fear if you had that fear at all? And does anybody else have that fear?
Yeah, live used to be my favorite, Parag. I used to run all around LA just doing lives. I went to a Clippers game. If I went anywhere, I just turn on the phone. But this was back when Periscope, like that's how I started in social media in general, was just that. And it's interesting because the thing that I don't do it much now. And now Chirag, after this call, I'm sure tomorrow he's gonna be like, Adam, we gotta start doing live again. So we're creating more work here. But that being said, like what I found is you can make it, like when somebody does join, you just make that individual connection. Like you call them out, you talk to them, and if you have one person on there, you just get their attention. And maybe somebody maybe somebody you don't know, but you'd be really surprised. Like to this day, and I haven't really done live in years, probably 3 years, easily. And I still have people on Twitter that that from all around the world. I mean, everywhere from the Middle East, Belt to you name it, that just remembered when I did lives, and they check in on me and they're like, hey, so what's going on and things like that. But you can actually form like some really interesting long-term relationships with people, and they'll follow you and they'll get to know you and you'll get to know them too. And you'll start recognizing them, especially when your audience is smaller and you just have that 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people that you see consistently. In my opinion, that's actually more powerful than having, as my audience at that point at Periscope got bigger, it was harder to keep track, but like you can build some real relationships. So if you're just there and there's nobody there, it's okay. Like you just say, hey, there's nobody here. And I would just start talking. And then when somebody came in, come on, I would just hook them. I'd be like, hey, what's going on? I've been sitting here talking to myself for the last 3 minutes. What are you doing? And then I'd go from there. But that was just some little tips I had, like from when I started. And I guess I will probably start doing that again.
I love it. A note on the live is give them something to grab onto. So like when you go live, you have to put on the top 5 steps, whatever. You have to grab people on the first message, which would be the title of your live video. If you could put that on there, because if you just go live, then obviously anything could happen and no one will show up. But if there's a grabber, I think that's what marketing is about. As you know, if you watch TV, you see all these commercials. They're always teasing things for the future or 5 months, and you're like, I want to watch that movie. Like the same thing would go with live or any video you put out there. It really has to do with the title that you write out for people to catch on and grab. Other than that, why would they show up? There's so much other content out there that all they do is have the amazing little intro saying, you can't live without this book. Boom, done. Don't show up. You know what I mean? Or be a millionaire overnight. That one's a little tough because that's everywhere. But just little things like that will grab somebody's attention, and you won't be alone at all.
Me jumping in here, I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial here. I don't think video is going to be, as advantageous later. And there's a couple reasons. Video, I believe, was, and I think though now with these live audio rooms and Clubhouse comes out, Twitter is already beta testing something. Instagram is going to do something with this audio stuff. I think the reason why live audio, is going to surpass where we all thought video was going, and it was there for quite some time, is because a couple of these you guys even noted. For one, there's a personal hesitancy to even start a video. So for one, you have a barrier to entry for people producing the videos, for one. Live has another issue where it's not very engaging either. It's one way. It's not like it's a big group of it's like a Zoom call where everyone's in there and video and engaging. So there's a lack of engagement. It's a very one-way conversation with live or just produced video. And then also, again, the barrier to entry of people just being nervous for being on video in general. Whereas an exponential amount of people not only feel way more comfortable in audio, you can put your profile picture here and you can jump into this. 90% of the people who jump into Clubhouse or some of these other audio streaming ones that are coming out would never do a video. There's too much prep work for it. They don't have maybe the right equipment. They don't know what they should wear. They got to consider the background, ambient noise. What are they going to say? To edit it. At the end, they don't know video editing well. Whereas something like this, I have my app. I click a button. I jump in. I can talk or I can mute myself. And so I'm going to say that live audio, interactive audio like this, and whatever is going to come next on other platforms and however this is going to be integrated in the future, I think this is going to overtake video. There will always be a place for video, obviously. And for selling things and for creating it, and it'll go viral for funny stuff, sure. But when it comes to a B2B status, I don't see video holding a torch to audio in the next 2 years. That's just, I'm calling my shot early. That's my opinion.
I believe so. I think everything you said is super, super true. But the beauty about that is that the people that do understand and can be on camera, they'll be the ones on top of the video.
They will do much better. I think just that engagement factor is going to be huge. Elon Musk was on Clubhouse like the other day or something like that, or last week, and people are engaging and talking. And it's like, when you get access to celebrities and billionaires and experts in their field like you do on something like this, I mean, this is hockey stick, territory here. This is exponential curve, and we don't even know where it's going to go. What I do know is that, I agree with you, by the way, Nancy, whoever does know video well, they will thrive very much because there'll be less competition. But I also think that the engagement is going to be, you can build a lot more authority with video, right? Because people can connect with you a little better. Personally, they can understand you, they see your face, they see you interact, but I think where that engagement is going to come in, I don't think anything is going to come anywhere close to like what we're doing right now. I've got more engagement with you guys who are effectively strangers to me than I probably had with people I know in the last 2 days. I'm talking more with you guys than I have my friends, in a work week. It's kind of funny to laugh at, but think about that for a second, right? And just I'm on an app, and we're all talking professional talk. I mean, I couldn't get this out of a video. I would never get this kind of personal engagement, followers, following other people than I would, if I put a video on LinkedIn. I've got 12,000 followers on LinkedIn. If I put a video on there tomorrow, I'm not going to get the kind of engagement that I can from this one room that I'm doing tonight. And again, that's my opinion. I'm not saying that that's how it's going to be. That's just the way I see it.
It's actually a growing trend, though. If you look at it, like Amazon acquired, I forgot the name, what's it called, for 300 million plus, whatever it was. Alexa is going all in, right? There's a lot of opportunities there, even with Google Home and all these different platforms. So everything is becoming more voice activated, and it's the easiness and convenience. Like, the fact is, I could literally sit in my bed right now, or like going to sleep listening to a Clubhouse app or engaging with someone. It's like just being on a phone call, except the difference is it's like we're at a dinner table without having to like dress up and do all the extra that comes with it. This is just direct engagement. So there's without question, there is a huge audience for audio, and this platform itself is proof. I think there's like 6-7 million people that are on the platform right now, give or take. And it's like exponentially, there's like a hockey stick curve of like people wanting to join, they just can't. And I think Clubhouse is smart and done a great job in building up their platform with creating that level of exclusivity, because it's trying to like get into that nightclub, if you will, or even like Facebook in the early stages when they started off just with the universities and then slowly expanded to, capturing all the other audiences too.
Well, I don't think any of you are old enough to be familiar with something called a party line, but 50 years ago, the telephone company discontinued the party line and gave everybody their private line. So I sort of see this as coming full circle, that what we end up with now is a party line. So we can all get on, everyone can kind of share, listen, talk, and do whatever. So I think it's a really cool thing. I do appreciate the invitation, the opportunity to share. And like JC was saying, I really get a lot out of it. I love to have these kinds of conversations that can, further the thinking and really get us to think more about things as opposed to just thinking that we already know everything. And then the other thing I wanted to say about the video is this. I think the live video is definitely a trend where things will go. People are enamored with reality. I think that's why TikTok and some of these other platforms do really well, when they can expose this humanness of people. But the one thing that I think that will really help make a difference is when the live video can actually stream the words through a closed caption, because what I know for sure is that when I post my videos with closed captioning, I get so many more views than I do when it's just the words, when it's just the audible only.
Actually, that's a really, really good point. There was something I wanted to interject. I'm gonna jump in just to say that I think I know where certain video content might be able to stay competitive. There's a subscriber on YouTube called Riddle, with 3 Ds in it. Riddle. There's also one called What If. What they do, and this is not mostly like sci-fi type stuff. But what I like about it is that they pose a really interesting, provocative question around what if an asteroid hit the Earth? What if this happened? What if everyone on Earth jumped up and down at the same time? What would happen? Would it slow the Earth down? These are like really, really yeah, just hearing that, you're probably thinking, what the heck is that about? And that's what it does. They typically get like between 2 and 3 million people who, like I said, for views whenever they do this. They have really good content. They've got really great computer animation. That's what they do. So, but I like the approach they do. We don't necessarily, I'm not saying that everyone has to create these, really, really bizarre kind of content, asking, really strange kind of questions like that. But anything that would pose a question, anything that would create a really fascinating story around a topic, not about a product, about a topic that kind of connects to something that's important to them, I think that's a better way of getting a follower / subscriber. And if you're going around the question, if it's about the narrative around a particular topic that is really interesting, that's something that doesn't get talked about, but something that might bounce around in your head a bit, somehow, if you get enough people who are interested in that topic, has some relevance to your product and service, I think that's how maybe video content might be able to compete. Because I've seen the guys who did I can't remember the name of the show, but these two guys, they do all these tests. If you tried this, would it actually work like it does in the movies? That's another good example. They have a shtick. The shtick works. They wear the same kind of stuff, but it works for them. There's a certain theatricality of it, but I think that video content is going to have to be more theatrical. I think it's going to have to be more provocative, more finger in the face a little bit, like, hey, you over there. When they engage you on the screen, they tell you, point this, point, click here for more information. They tease it out of you. We're gonna tell you what you want to hear, but we're gonna take you through a little journey first. And so long as the journey is worthwhile, they seem to do really well for views. Now I'll throw that to everybody else. If there's a way to do that for video content, whether it be whether it be a webcast, podcast, what have you, if there's a way to do that, I would love to know. I'm trying to figure that out for our company to try to do what they.
Sorry, what was the specific question? You're trying to figure out what's the problem?
Oh, by the way, I just brought up Eli. I figured we'd do a quick little Q&A session here. I know we've been getting people going in and out, so I figured why not open it up.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Was that for me, Eli? It wasn't so much. It was more a question of has anyone thought of the idea or maybe attempted? I think one of you said that you've involved in like maybe filmmaking or in that or kind of dabbled. Has anyone ever tried to create a story that's not specific to a product or service that you sell, but something that's so engaging and interesting? It may seem like almost like a non sequitur. It may seem like it, but then it suddenly becomes clearer in the back. And I understand. Yeah. Now I kind of see how this can connect to my product. So you pose the question, get them hooked to it, and then kind of play it that way, and then try to create more of an organic journey to the sale process. That's something that we've been experimenting at Greenlight. So that's what I was curious if anyone has tried that approach.
I do it all the time. Basically, I record people. Like I'll go to my client's office or I'll go to her business or catering. Most of my clients are caterers. I'll go and I'll show up like if I was just recording friends, hey, and like it does not look like a commercial at all. But at the end, all through the entire journey, I was just promoting her food and trying out her food, but it all looked like I was just live going in there hanging out, like it wasn't a commercial. So it's just about the producer, finding out a good producer that can make it not a non-commercial looking production, basically. But at the end of the day, you do have to kind of strategize on what the plan is going to be, because then you're going to be able to tell the difference. So it's just a matter of finding a good producer. It happens all the time. Like I don't know if you watched like movies that will drive in a Jeep and they're, it's like a scene where they're traveling through the mountains. That alone is a commercial. They probably got the Jeep for free. Do you know what I mean? So just product integration is what it's called. And they do it all the time on big screens.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions just for the group here? Or any final thoughts?
I just want to say, I'm glad you guys put these on here. I think it's really cool too, by the way, when you send kind of the text with the easy link to be able to go check out the room and to add it to the calendar. So I thought that was really convenient. As far as telling people about this room, that's probably something I'm gonna looking at doing also. I'm going to be looking at text message marketing, which I don't usually do in B2B. That's usually a B2C thing. But I think I'm going to start adding the mobile numbers of like podcast guests that I've had on already, and then sending them kind of the way you do with this, letting them know about a room that I'm going to host that would be relevant to them to start trying to build up bigger rooms and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty cool of you guys to just to get us here. So, but yeah, thanks everybody for coming in and taking off, and hope to see you guys in the next time we have the room.
Fantastic. Thanks, JC.
Thanks, JC. Yeah, what
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everybody. So it's my first time using Clubhouse, and I thought it was great. I just literally downloaded it today. I got the invite a while ago, but I didn't fire up my old iPhone to be able to download it because I'm now on Android. And I think this platform's great. Thank you guys for putting this on, Adam, Chirag.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. And
was great.
yeah, and just so you guys know, we host these once a week now. So, and we've already planned out the next month. So what we're going to do is send out more emails to the group and, help you guys join some of these Clubhouse rooms that are relevant to, what you guys do.
Awesome. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone, have a good evening. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.